Good morning. Continuing this morning, looking at Psalm 119, making our way through the acrostic of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, and today Dalet, which is verses 25 to 32, the section of Psalm 119 under the heading of the Hebrew letter Dalet. And in these verses from 25 to 32, we see something that is very interesting. In two places, it indicates how the psalmist is begging for God to teach him the law and God's commandments because he finds himself in a place of need. He says in verse 25, "My soul clings to the dust." And then in verse 28, "My soul melts away for sorrow." My soul clings to the dust, my soul melts away for sorrow. And his response to this is he asks God to give him life according to your word. And twice he says, "Teach me your statutes, teach me your law." Right? He wants God, in response to his sorrow and to his clinging to the dust, to give him a better understanding of who God is through the law. Now, that's interesting because it raises the point of what use is the law for us? In other words, is it really for our good? We've talked a little bit over the last couple of days that it is that it's God's command. It's just, therefore, because he commanded it. But again, it comes up, should we desire it? Should we really want it? Should we be grateful for it? And the psalmist seems to be saying that in the midst of his deepest struggle, where his soul is melting away from sorrow, he desires to know and understand better God's statutes and God's law. Now, I think there's two ways that we can look at this to understand how that is true for us. The first thing that God's law does for us is it reminds us that God cares about us, right? Any parent who truly loves his child is going to put boundaries around that child to protect him or her, right? The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. Indifference. I don't care. Do whatever you feel like. Do whatever you want. When God gives us his commandments, it is supremely an act of love because he does not desire us to be left on our own, trying to figure out our sorrow in the midst of us clinging to the dust. He doesn't want us to do that alone. He wants us to do it in the context of his law. He cares about us. He tells us what's wrong, and he gives us standards so that we can see it. Which points us to the second thing that I think we can find great comfort in when we consider God's law, because John Newton helpfully points out the law is used as a means of conviction of sin. Right? So we see God's standards, we see our failure to meet it. Now, it doesn't immediately sound like good news, but it's not to make men more wicked, but to make us sensible about how wicked we are, so that the work of grace can begin in the life of the sinner, and condemned in our own conscience, right? Be able to now see the difference between the way that we live and what God requires. Condemned in our own conscience, we are now brought to Jesus for life. In other words, God cares and loves us so much that he uses the law to put boundaries around us, to protect us, to show us our inability to keep it, and to lead us lovingly to the one who kept it for us, to Jesus. So if you're in the place this morning where you might be saying, "My soul clings to the dust," and your soul is melting away because of sorrow or grief or struggle or something that's going on in your life, then thank God that he cares enough to show us who he is through his law, and to use that law to bring us to Christ. Have a great day.